Hey everyone, Chris Johnson with Money Morning. NVIDIA and Palantir are now in a neck-and-neck horse race as both stocks are up 200% or more over the last 12 months. But one of them is going to move another 50% higher faster than the other. I'm going to break down the reason why and which stock it is. Spend 5 or 10 minutes with me handicapping this thoroughbred horse race. You're going to be a better investor for it. Let's jump in. All right, let's jump into handicapping these two AI thoroughbreds. By the way, I'm Chris Johnson from Money Morning. If you haven't been in on one of these videos before, make sure you stick around. I'm here to give you an edge on both stocks and the market. Check out the website, moneymorning.com, for more information as well. So, NVIDIA and Palantir, it has been an interesting ride over the last 12 months. Let's take a look at the actual chart of both of these stocks. NVIDIA more than doubling the performance of Palantir over the last 6 months, but that has changed as we've seen this huge rally, and you can see it starting to kick off in June. Palantir is the green price line in that chart. It has really kicked in another 40 to 50% over the last 2 weeks after number one, Palantir announced better than expected earnings, and two, they got a little bit of a bump from the Trump election there, and there are some ties to what could happen with Palantir and their government work in 2025 as they continue to grow that business as a result of the election. So a lot to look forward to, but let's talk about why one of these stocks is a little bit better than the other. And that's in my opinion, but it's also due to an approach that I've followed for a long time. So, contrarianism. And when I say that, a lot of people are going to start to roll their eyes and go, contrarian trade. I've heard about this, but I'm not sure. It's very simple. And like I said, I'm all about giving you an edge in the market. And this is an easy way to get an edge. So what is a true contrarian trade? 3 different components here, and they're easy. Number one, you want a company that is fundamentally strong or getting stronger. Palantir checks that box. Number two, and so does NVIDIA, by the way. Number two, you want strong technical patterns. Guess what? Palantir has it and NVIDIA has it. Pessimism. You want a wall of worry. And you've probably heard that phrase before. A wall of worry is something that stocks or the stock market climbs up. They climb up a wall of worry. They slide down a slope of hope. Write it down and remember it, because that is a very easy saying that can help you figure out a lot of things on Wall Street. But only one of these companies has a wall of worry. I'll let the cat out of the bag. It's Palantir, and I'm going to show you that wall of worry and how it's going to help the stock move higher. So let's look at the fundamentals, and I'll go through these very quickly. It's a part of the trade, but I think they're pretty well known. People aren't listening to them, but Palantir's got 3 products out there. They've got the Gotham, the Foundry, and the Apollo products. One works with the government entities, and that is Gotham. They work with counter-terrorism, the Defense Department, etc., to basically do a lot of decision-making or help to fulfill decision-making for those entities. Uses large language models, a lot of AI learning to help do that. Data, that's where Palantir got its start and where it continues to grow, is using AI technology to process huge amounts of data. The Foundry product is the one that is out in the private sector. It helps companies become a little more productive by going out and, again, harnessing AI. And then they've got Apollo. And we'll just think of this as not a translator, but it's an enabler between Palantir's different systems to let them run very smoothly. I am simplifying this beyond simplification, but I want to keep this short for you. So what has happened with those fundamentals? Well, they're paying off. Those 3 products have gone from zero to hero over the last 3 years or so. And what I mean, and that's kind of set the stage for why Palantir has more of a strong tailwind than NVIDIA does at this point. Look right here. And this is back in 2020 when the company started trading publicly in 2020. It came out and everybody fell in love with the company. It was expected to knock the cover off the ball when it came to harnessing AI. But guess what? Wall Street's memory was very short. The first quarter, Palantir beat expectations. The second quarter, they released in 2021 their earnings results, and they fell short. They showed losses on both the revenue, everything across the board. It disappointed Wall Street and it jaded them. And a lot of investors, everybody ran from this stock. It lost 85% over the next 12 months. And then we had the bear market in 2022, and that stripped even more value out of it until 2023. So Palantir went from bad to worse at the hand of the market. But what has happened here over the last, let's call it 2 years, is you've seen a trend now in those earnings per share. And here is the surprise level. Anything above that red line is Palantir doing better than the market expected. And they are doing that since the end of 2022 into 2024. The other side of that, this orange line, is revenue. And this is against expectations. This is not their revenue growth. Right now, revenue growing at about 30%, and that is up sequentially every quarter. So is NVIDIA, except their growth actually dropped down 200%, down to 150, 120% last quarter. So you're seeing a tail in that surprise. But we're looking at Palantir right now. You're seeing that surprise in revenue continue to outpace the market expectations. Big part of a contrarian trade. Now, the next one is where we get to the expectations, and this is where Palantir really starts to exceed. Despite the fact that they're doing better than expectations across the board, Palantir still remains a buy recommendation by only 21% of Wall Street analysts. Another 42% have them in the hold category, and 37% have them rated a sell. Interesting point here, and this shows how jaded Wall Street is. Right ahead of their earnings, a couple of analysts downgraded the stock, and then after their earnings call, 3 more analysts downgraded the stock. They're saying you sell the news here in terms of the rally that's happened in Palantir. I'd argue that any pullback in the stock is now a great opportunity to buy the dip. But those Wall Street analysts far on the sidelines right now, and it goes back again to being disappointed way back in 2021. Here's your price target for Palantir. It's right now at $37.20. The stock is coming off of, let's go back to that chart of Palantir's. It's now coming off of the highs just above $60. So not quite double the price target of Wall Street, but certainly 85 to 90% higher. And you can see that it has got a 37% downside compared to their target prices. This is where the magic is going to happen for Palantir as we move forward. But let's keep going here and look at a little bit of additional pessimism. This is from the last video that I did on Palantir ahead of earnings. Even some of you, the viewers, are saying, my gosh, the stock's going to crash badly after their earnings. Never hop on hypes. Palantir is far from a hype. I'm not pointing this out to say, hey, the viewers are, part of that pessimism or calling out against it, but it is part of the bigger picture. Watch for media headlines to actually go against a stock or say that they expect a stock to disappoint, and that's often a sign that expectations are low, and that's what a contrarian trade is all about. Now, let's take a look at NVIDIA. I've given you a picture of Palantir, and we know the price chart for NVIDIA. It's up 200%. It's above all of its technical trends, which are friendly to the stock, and it's a little bit extended here as it's at $150. It spent the last 3 or 4 months going from 120 up to 140 and then inching its way up to 150, and that's a week or so out from the earnings announcement. I'll pull up that chart for you right now. Love the chart for NVIDIA. I'm a long-term bull on NVIDIA. There's that 50-day moving average that you can see right here, that green line saying the trend is friendly. And the problem is that Wall Street and investors are a little too friendly towards NVIDIA, and that's why there's an opportunity here for Palantir. Here's your earnings per share revenue surprise and for NVIDIA. Same chart that we just saw for Palantir. And notice how the stock is now tailing off over the last. This is the earnings per share surprise, that blue line. And you see that it's leveled off and is now starting to head lower. And then revenue has sharply started to decline in terms of surprises here. We're still seeing the company grow that revenue, and that is important. But the essence of this is that you really need to be impressing Wall Street, and that is not what NVIDIA has been doing. Last quarter, they kind of bought a little bit of time. The expectations were big for Blackwell, that new chip that they are rolling out and expect to see fully rolled out in 2025 and growing their business again. But Wall Street's already factored that into their prices and their stock expectations. Let's look at those expectations. 94% a hold or a buy on this stock, and you've got the remaining 6%. If I scroll back up to that chart that you saw for Palantir, notice the huge difference there, and that is your opportunity. A stock right now like NVIDIA needs to knock the cover off the ball, blow Wall Street's hair back, all of those sayings. They need to impress more than anything. Now, I'll go on a little story here, and my stories are, I'll keep this short, but it's a great one. Back in the early 2000s, Microsoft and Apple were in this same situation. Apple was in a situation where they were redoing their fundamentals. They were trying to come out with new products that could get the bottom line going again. Remember, this is a company that came into the 2000s with Macintoshes and such, and we saw a lot of growth, obviously, and innovation from Apple that drove that. But from the Wall Street perspective, way back then, Microsoft had 94% buy recommendations from Wall Street, and that was going into 2001, 2002. Apple was at about 32%, so it was almost a mirror image of what we're seeing between these two stocks. Once Apple started to hit the stride and fundamental growth took off, the stock went up more than 200% over a 25-month period. Microsoft traded flat over the same period. So that's a little bit of a lesson in terms of what lower expectations can do for a stock, as they did for Apple way back then. 94%, that means the company has to absolutely blow out numbers next week to keep its growth in its stock price. You've got a 5% upside on Apple stock. So right now, Wall Street targets are above the stock price, unlike in Palantir, rather, where the stock price is 37% above analyst recommendation prices. So that is the big difference here. If I put them side by side, I don't need to point it out. This is clear which one has more potential for upgrades and more potential for price target upgrades. And that is Palantir, which is why Palantir right now is the stock that has more potential to move another 50% higher faster than NVIDIA. I always pull out this chart whenever I talk about sentiment and contrarianism, and it's simple. It shows us what happens when a stock or the stock market are at these certain stages. Euphoria being that stage where everybody's all in. Wall Street loves a stock or the market, and there's nowhere else to go because all of the buying power has been driven into that name. Despair, when everybody hates a stock or doesn't like it, that's the best time to buy. Warren Buffett's taught you that by saying buy when there's blood in the street. When everyone else is running away, that's when you step in. Right now, we're in this stage on Palantir, which is disbelief. It's one of the most powerful stages a stock can be going into. The company is performing. Fundamentally, the stock is performing, but everybody doesn't believe in it. At some point, we run into acceptance, and that's when the stock starts to grow the way that NVIDIA did years ago, and Palantir really starts to charge ahead. Remember, we're talking about let's call it a transition. AI has been growing. We've been building AI for the last 3, 4, 5, longer than that, years. The technology behind it, AMD, NVIDIA, all of these companies, Dell now getting into this, where we building the infrastructure, the data centers, etc. Now those companies are handing the baton off to the AI service companies like Palantir that are going to harness that technology and going to run and start making their money with it. Doesn't mean that NVIDIA goes down. It just means that there are other opportunities out there for a little more substantial growth in terms of outpacing NVIDIA. Finally, I'm going to go to a little bit of a summary here of what to expect. The next 50% winner is Palantir. Watch for a slight technical pullback here. I mentioned when we look at that chart, and I'll pull up the live chart right now of Palantir. When we look at this chart, the stock is overbought. And they say overbought can become more overbought, but in this case, it really is due for a little bit of a healthy correction. Call that healthy correction something that would take the stock down to a $50 level, and you hit a psychological support level in terms of round numbers at 50, and that's when you're going to see those that have been left on the sideline start to upgrade the stock and buy it. You've also got support way down here at 42.50, which is where the stock's 50-day moving average is. I do expect a little bit of a healthy pullback in NVIDIA shares, and that is an opportunity to buy the dip. I'll hit NVIDIA's chart here in a second for you. Shares are going to see some volatility around NVIDIA's earnings on the 20th of November. I expect all AI stocks to see a little bit of a rumble based on what NVIDIA does. Let's face it, they are right now still the master of the AI universe. Watch for Wall Street to start shifting their opinion and their outlook on Palantir, and that's what's really going to get the stock moving higher. I expect we'll see some upgrades before the February earnings if the stock holds its prices or starts to increase more. And after that earnings report, and remember, the company guided expectations higher last quarter. After that earnings report, another beat is really going to get Wall Street on the other side of the stock to the point where they have to start upgrading it to a hold for those sells and a buy from the holds. And you're going to see a lot of price targets. And that is what drives retail investor and Main Street investors into stocks more heavily. Wall Street and Main Street like to move as a crowd, and nothing gets them moving more than upgrades to a stock. That'll be the case with Palantir. I did have a price just 3-4 weeks ago, a price target of $50 to $60 on a stretch. It's exceeded that. That pullback to $50 set the stage for a price target of $80 to $100 on a stretch for Palantir. That's over the next 6 to 12 months. How about NVIDIA? Because NVIDIA's got earnings coming up next week on November 20th. Be cautious around that earnings report. Remember, if everybody loves the stock, that means that the good news has been baked into the price. We really need to see Jensen Huang come out and absolutely give us an outlook that is striking at this point. The smart money is on Blackwell lifting revenue and earnings per share and getting them back into an upward trend. But we need to start seeing that come to fruition here. So investors are going to expect to see that. If they get any disappointment, you'll see heavy selling of the stock. Psychological resistant at $150. Let's look at that NVIDIA chart really quickly. There we go, $150. You can see that it is playing around with that for the last week. We could see a little bit of a buy the rumor right ahead of that earnings announcement next week, but I wouldn't be surprised to see the stock sit here. A pullback is going to consolidate it down to that $130 level, which is where the 50-day moving average is. Think we see it go much lower than that unless some stronger selling forces come out to play on the market past NVIDIA's earnings. Going back to what to expect from the outlook of the company, I've got downside potential to $130. That's where it becomes a buy the dip stock, and it is a strong buy the dip name. Long term, expect the shares to remain bullish with a $200 price tag on the stock over the next 6 to 12 months. So both of these stocks giving you an impressive outlook. One of them going to move a little bit faster, and in this case that is Palantir, because the contrarian trade is in place. Strong fundamentals, strong technicals, and pessimistic sentiment. It's going to continue to climb up that wall of worry, and it's going to do it much faster as soon as Wall Street starts to come alive and upgrade the stock and its price targets. There you have it. As always, make sure you check out the website, moneymorning.com, and don't forget to sign up down below for our weekly 5 free stock watch list. We send that out every Monday morning, and it gives you 5 different stocks to look at for the week and the months coming forward. So don't miss out on that. I'm Chris Johnson, wishing you the best trading success. Have a great day.